So look, this afternoon's webinar is really about, it's a long time coming. Employment Hero and ShiftCare have had a relationship for quite some time. And what we were looking to do is, how could we take that relationship to the next level, and how could we help to reinforce your investment in your existing technology and systems, or allow you to future-proof for the procurement of additional sort of technology and systems. And a couple of the two core platforms that we integrate with are HR platforms. So where do you store your staff, their certifications, training documents? Where do you manage them? How do you manage their leave? And then the other aspect off the back of ShiftCare is how do we help you better manage your payroll? Now, we know staff onboarding can be a pain for a lot of our customers, and we know that payroll can be a pain for our customers. And so what we were looking at doing is, how could Employment Hero and ShiftCare come together to sort of collaborate and create a much more friction-free journey between our two ecosystems and platforms. So it feels like this is a real first for the industry when we've been able to integrate into both Employment Hero's HR's platform and Employment Hero payroll platform. So what we might do is we'll kick off, and we normally just run through a couple of hygiene aspects. Paul, I might get you to just sort of talk about some of the hygiene aspects and then really focus on the Q&A and how we answer Q&A.
Yeah, so I mean, the audio and video won't be accessible to anyone. Look, we have got the chat. Some of you have been letting us know where you dialed in from, which is really awesome, but don't use that chat for questions. There's a separate section in Zoom called a Q&A. So you should see it down in your bar at the bottom of the Zoom call. That's a really great place to put questions in, because then everyone can track the questions that have been asked and what the answers were. It kind of gets a bit lost in the chat. So yeah, don't use the chat for questions, but use the Q&A section. And yeah, the most common question we get, is this being recorded and will we get a copy of it? Yes, everyone that's registered, even if they're not here to watch it, will be. And actually, before we even get straight into it, we have already had a question in the Q&A, and I think it's such a great question that I think it's even worth me quickly answering it before we jump in. So someone said, hey, with the recent announcement of the SHADS interpreter coming to ShiftCare, will the integration with Employment Hero be benefit if we're already on run a payroll program with Xero? And I think the key to that is that, yes, we are doing a SHADS interpreter, which is really awesome. That's more about warning your staff when they're building the roster that what they're doing will have implications from a payroll perspective. But it still means that if you're running Xero, you would have to add allowances manually. You'd have to make sure that you've got pay groups on shifts for night rates, for shifts before and after sleepovers. There's a whole bunch of manual stuff that you still need to do to ensure that the payroll side is paid correctly and accurately. So having both is really the dream. Having your roster with the SHADS warnings so that your staff are aware of things that they're doing, but also when that payroll gets sent through, that it's going to apply those rules and pay correctly per the SHADS award. It's so important to have both sides. So yes, I'd say you still should be listening to Courtney when she's about to tell you all about it. Cool. So this is us. Yeah.
This is us. So I'm Matt Cagney. I'm the CEO here at ShiftCare. Courtney is, I guess, the wonderful woman that we've been working with for, it feels like the last sort of 6 to 7 months to really align on the vision and then actually deliver that vision to our customers. So Courtney's going to be a key spokesman for, in this particular webinar, an SME on the Employment Hero side. And for those who haven't met Paul is one of our senior customer success managers based up in Brisbane, and is an absolute expert in ShiftCare. So we've got Paul here, and we've also got Courtney and her team here to answer any questions via the Q&A section. So please ask them there, because correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but at the end of the webinar, we send you the recording. Do we send you the Q&A and the answers as well?
I have no idea. That's a great question.
And I think, yeah, it's something, let's try and figure out how do we do that. We've got Quiver online from marketing. I think that's what we should definitely do.
Yeah, you can ask me a ShiftCare question. I can tell you the answer, but not a Zoom question.
And so, look, really, today's agenda is really simple. We're going to get Courtney to dive into the Employment Hero and ShiftCare integration, really what it looks like. We'll hand the floor to Courtney. Then once Courtney's finished, we're going to hand the floor to Paul, who's actually going to dive into ShiftCare and just sort of bring this to life about how you would leverage the Employment Hero integration to the HR platform and how you would leverage the integration to the Employment Hero payroll platform. And then, as always, we dedicate a lot of time to Q&A. This is one time for you to ask as many questions as you have, and we'll try and respond in real time. So over to you, Courtney. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And great slide change as well. Thank you. I'm so excited to announce the integration between ShiftCare and Employment Hero today. Like Matt said, guys, it has been a really long time coming. And before I get into the weeds or the real back-end details of the integration itself, I really want to zoom out for a second and talk about our why and why we've done this, what's informed the integration, just to give you guys a bit of perspective on the benefits of it as well. Over the last years, between our two client bases, whilst everyone has challenges unique to their business, the themes tend to be quite similar. So if we look at mission statements among a lot of our NDIS clients or what their real goals are, it's not just about compliance to framework, it's a real mission to improve people's quality of life, to enable independence, dignity and care for so many Australians. But achieving that in a really highly regulated industry can be quite a balance. It's a real balancing act between technology, stakeholders, changing regulations, and it makes the day-to-day realities of running a business a little bit difficult. Right now, what we hear time and time again from our clients is that the sector is under really immense pressure, and it feels like a lot of the time the goalposts are changing, the SHADS awards being updated, there's new NDIS regulations. It can be really hard to stay on top of those. On top of that, we've got workforce shortages at a 5-year high, more compliance demands in the pipe coming through, and more administrative burdens as we add more technology to our tech stacks within our companies. You take all of that and then you add in Christmas in a few weeks or the holiday period fast approaching, and all of these challenges tend to really intensify. So staff are taking leave or they're going away, spending time with their families over Christmas, makes it a lot harder to fill shifts. But despite that, clients' needs don't take a break. Clients' needs don't go on holidays over Christmas. They're not going out for New Year's, they're still there. And that can make things like rostering, staffing, a real extra stress for business owners during this period. So that is essentially a bit of background about why we're here today, why we've built the integration, and a few things that we're really trying to solve, because at the end of the day, with the right tech stack and with integrated technologies, it makes all this a whole lot easier, giving you guys back more time and resources to focus on things that are really mission critical. Could I get the next slide, please? So if we have a look at, or if at a high level, I summarize some of the core challenges that we're seeing amongst our NDIS and care-based clients, is most of them will fall within one of the three categories I've got up on the screen there. And the first one is those workforce shortages and retention issues. What we know is that the Australian care sector is, to put it politely, probably in the midst of a bit of a workforce crisis. There's really high turnover rates, there's really high burnout rates, there's unexpected absences that can be really hard to track within the workplace. All of those things combined make maintaining the continuity of care for your clients really difficult to meet at times, particularly heading into Chrissy. Imagine if an employee calls in sick or doesn't rock up to a shift or takes really unexpected leave. Then suddenly you're scrambling to find a replacement whilst trying to maintain compliance with client plans. That demand isn't expected to slow down either. That's something that is expected to continue to amp up. I saw a stat this morning where the sector is forecast to need an additional 83,000 workers by next year. And next year is what, 3-4 weeks away now? What that means is those businesses, or your businesses really, are competing for the same talent pools. We know immigration rates are down as well, which means hiring and recruiting can be a bit of a challenge. So then there is also the pressure to attract and retain talent. So the employee experience through rostering, being paid on time, onboarding, all that does filter into the employee retention as well. Point 2 I've got up on the screen there is increased compliance scrutiny, Now that is twofold. That is both with the NDIS as well as with Fair Work. The NDIS industry as a whole tends to operate under a bit of a microscope. You have obligations both as a service provider and as an employer. With Fair Work compliance, there's the award rate accuracy, there's entitlement calculations, those are all critical. And even if you make a small error, however unintentional, the flow-on effects can be quite significant and have a really big business impact. We're talking fines, we're talking reputational damage, even losing accreditation, that sort of thing. It's not about intent, but the complexity of it is quite difficult, and it's all about getting it right. And that's what we're hoping to solve for some of you. some of you guys. Then lucky last is the heavy admin burden. We often hear that manual processes or separated and siloed systems between platforms that don't connect steal a lot of time, and we all know that time is money. There's also things like double handling errors, which I often spoke about. So things like rosters, not all your employees are visible, leave hasn't synced across, and you've rostered someone on and not known about it when they had leave booked in. Importing timesheets into payroll, there's a lot of manual work there. So that's a lot of time you could have back in your days. It also avoids you spending hours having to correct those errors too. The challenges are very, very real, but they are certainly not insurmountable. Paul, can I have next slide, please? So rather than talking about all the doom and gloom, I'm here to talk about some really positive things. That is the integration, and that is how the integration between ShiftCare and Employment Hero can solve that. So let's talk solutions. Now, let's start with simplifying workforce management. I want everyone to picture this. An employee submits a leave request, it then automatically syncs with your roster in ShiftCare. There's no manual adjustments, no surprises. It is all there, ready to go. You can see in real time who is available. So if you need to cover a last minute shift, you can see it there. Or if you're planning in advance, it's also there. When you are short-staffed, equally, you can use the Employment Hero platform to access pools of pre-vetted compliant workers on demand at no extra cost. They are there at your fingertips if you do need to quickly onboard staff to meet care requirement needs. The next one is ensuring compliance with confidence. Matt,
I was just going to say, look, one of those big ones is just how do you find last minute staff? And that was a new one to me, Courtney, that you're offering that service included in your pricing and packaging, which sounds amazing, right? Like I talk to providers and they're going, I've got X many hours of vacant in January. How am I going to fill them? I just don't know how to fill them. My staff are taking leave. You know, what's my backup? What's my process? So that's something even new to me. I didn't know Employment Hero offered that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think just to touch on that briefly or elaborate a little bit more for those who don't know, we have an AI-powered tool, AI-powered recruitment tool that exists within the HR platform, and that will essentially map candidates on our Employment Hero work platform to particular criteria within a job post. So location, salary expectations, qualification, work type, do you want someone full-time, part-time, casual, and that shortlists your candidates based on your requirements. So you're not trawling through hours and hours of resumes for people who aren't relevant to you. So massive time saving, and it's really valuable for industries like yours who need to meet those staffing demands quite quickly. So definitely really beneficial. The next one is about the power of, I suppose, automation. So your award interpretation, your shift penalties, other entitlements. You don't have to manually calculate them in a spreadsheet or in your head if you're particularly intelligent. That is all automated. That is all accurate as well, which is brilliant from a compliance perspective. You don't have to second guess whether the team is paid correctly. It is all built into the system. Paying people correctly is one thing, but then having everything audit report ready is another thing. So that is all incorporated again into the payroll system. So you're always, always, always prepared for any of those unexpected compliance checks too. Which really leads me into that streamlining payroll aspect of things that the integration really solves. So once staff have been rostered on, they've gone to work, they've worked their shift, it is now payday. There is no more double handling. So the timesheets will sync back into the payroll system. Our award interpreter in the payroll system itself will apply the correct award interpretation as well. So it is a lot faster, it is a lot simpler, it's a lot more accurate, ensures compliance. Not only that, but it also strengthens trust with your employees and satisfaction. They're being paid on time because your pay runs aren't stretching out. They're being paid the right amount every time. We all know that hell hath no fury like an employee mispaid or underpaid. So really key to that retention piece, I suppose. And then lucky last is saving time for what matters most. So by automating these processes, there is hours and hours and hours in most businesses' weeks that they get to reclaim back, whether it's across HR or payroll or a bit of a mix of both, in rostering and client management. Now, those hours can be spent on focusing on delivering care, building relationships with your clients, building relationships with their families, even spending more time at home with yours, rather than doing admin into really late hours in the night. If everyone is a bit of a visual person like me, we might skip to the next slide, and I'm going to show you an overview of what it really looks like and how the information would move between our systems. So we have Employment Hero HR, we have ShiftCare, and we have Employment Hero Payroll. Now, ShiftCare really is the gold standard of rostering for NDIS and care businesses as well. So we would highly recommend complementing our two platforms with theirs. It really starts at the very start of the employee onboarding journey with recruitment. So we touched on that too earlier, but when someone is recruited into the platform, it captures a range of their information. So tax file details, super, pay rates, all those sorts of things. And then we'll put them through an onboarding journey, which will collect additional information, assign out relevant policies and procedures, capture their certifications and qualifications, which are really important as well for rostering. They can then also manage their leave and unavailability within that platform there. Those employees are then integrated into the ShiftCare system itself, which is where you'll be able to do your compliant rostering, your care management, the timesheeting. Then once all that data is complete, it then flows back into Employment Hero Payroll this time. And that's where you can do your pay run processing with your award interpretation tool. It is really, really end to end. You don't need a whole lot more than our two systems combined.
And I think that's a really important part, because we talk to a lot of people, and that payroll process, depending on the size of your organization, might take 3 days, might take 2 days. It depends how quick you and your team work on that. But it'd be interesting to sort of see just in the chat, just from people, just how long does it take you on average to run your payroll? Because I guess with the implementation of these two systems, you would expect that time and effort to probably reduce by circa 80, 90%, I would have thought would be a realistic expectation.
It's also one of those things too, by automating a lot of the processes and removing the manual aspect of things. Your payroll processor, and it might be you in the business, goes on leave or is sick one day. A lot of those things will be able to happen automatically in the background as well. So from a business continuity perspective, there's so much value there too.
Awesome. Kelly said she's got us down to 2 hours for 100 staff, over 1,700 shifts a week. That's awesome. Awesome, Kelly. Congratulations to you and your team. If there's ways that we can help you reduce that further, we'd love to have a chat. But congratulations, 2 hours is not bad. It's pretty good.
It's amazing. Yeah. Next slide.
Yes, please. I suppose at a really high level, why is this important, or why does it matter? I touched on this earlier, and we all know that time is money. We, ShiftCare and Employment Hero, see our position in the market and what the integration, the value of our combined services is essentially by automating and streamlining things. We're giving you back the time and trying to empower you, providers, to achieve that vision without being held back by operational challenges, because HR, payroll, rostering, they're not really money generating activities. They're not improving client care, all those sorts of things. We want to take the hard work out of it for you guys, all the heavy lifting, and make your lives and your jobs a whole lot easier, and allow you to continue to provide that really crucial services within our communities. Lucky last slide for me, please, Paul. Integration demonstration.
There you go. Thank you. All right. Let's get down to the fun stuff. Oh, hang on. I'll just log back in again. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how we turn on the integration. I'm sort of going to do it at a high level, but we can get into the weeds during questions and stuff if people have specific questions that they want to ask. I'm just going to turn on the Employment Hero Payroll integration because there's a lot of similarities between that and the HR integration anyway. You do import employees through both integrations anyway. So yeah, I'll go through it. So look, to turn it on, you go to Account and Settings. You scroll down, and down the bottom here, there's a little section here for your integrations. And so you're able to turn on Employment Hero Payroll, and that will turn the integration on. Once you've turned it on, we're going to go back up and we're going to go to integrations. And we're going to go to Employment Hero Payroll, and this brings us into the integration. So first thing is I'm going to click Connect Employment Hero Payroll. Going to get me to log in. It's going to take me back, and then I'm going to choose one of my many companies that I have linked to my login. All right, so I'm connected to our ShiftCare version of Employment Hero. So a couple of things to do. So look, the first thing, and especially if we're talking about the Employment Hero HR, is the import of staff is such a great tool that we have. And so, you know, depending on your workflow, you might onboard a new staff member and you'll create them in the HR system. So you'll put their details in, you get all those documents uploaded, everything like that, and that'll be in your HR system. And so you can then run the import directly from HR into ShiftCare, which will then create the staff member in ShiftCare so that they exist. Now, I'm aware in some cases, a lot of people say to me, look, we're moving so fast. I'm employing a staff member today. I want them on a shift tomorrow, you know, so I don't have time to create them in Employment Hero first and then bring them into ShiftCare. I need them in ShiftCare. So you can still create the staff member in ShiftCare first, and then we can sync them together afterwards, and it'll still update the documentation and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, essentially the process to import the staff is to come down to import staff. By the way, we can see if I go to my staff list in Employment Hero, these are the staff that I have in Employment Hero. So I have 11 staff. So if I come back to here, now you do have the option to send them the email, the welcome email to ShiftCare. So, hey, you've been invited to join ShiftCare, all that kind of stuff. Saves you manually sending the email out. And then you can import staff. So this runs a process in the background where it's going to sync. And I think the important thing too is that if you do, and if you're using the HR section, there is a section for qualifications. And this is where you can put documents into Employment Hero. If you have put documents on the staff, they will import into ShiftCare when you import the staff, which is fantastic. If you add a document later, you can run the sync again, and you will need to run the sync anytime you add a new staff member anyway, and then they will create them. All right, so the imports run. 10 of them have been added. One of them hasn't been added. That's because the email address is already taken, so they're already using ShiftCare, but the rest of them are all added okay. So if we go to staff list now, we'll be able to see that's created all those staff for me. If we go to timesheet and list, we should be able to see all our staff in the timesheets, and we can see an awesome new little purple icon there to tell us that it's synced to Employment Hero Payroll. So that's the staff syncing side of it. The next is setting up how do we sync things through to Employment Hero in terms of the actual payroll and syncing. And someone actually did ask one of the questions, so I'll address that right now, is we've added a new category, emerging leader hour at ShiftCare. How do we set up the same category in Employment Hero when importing file at Employment Hero? How do we know that what's the external ID? So look, the way it works, and it's hard for someone who may not use Employment Hero already. So if you're new to Employment Hero, you've never seen it before, this will probably go over your head, and that's okay. The guys at Employment Hero will help you set this up and do all that. And a lot of this is automated as well when you set it up. But essentially, Employment Hero has work types, and work types are how we tell Employment Hero when we send a shift over, what kind of shift were they working? You know, what were they doing on that shift? And to be honest, for normal shifts, we don't need to send anything over. We just say that they worked from 9 to 3 or whatever in the afternoon. And Employment Hero is smart enough to go, well, if it didn't tell me what kind of shift it was just a regular shift based on their regular hours that they work. So you don't have to tell it. But if it is a situation like what this person, Rika, is mentioning, where they've got like a leadership type of role, so maybe this one shift, they're working like a special leadership position in this shift, so they need to be paid a higher hourly rate, then we can have a work type for that we would create in Employment Hero. So we might call it, you know, like leadership rate. And these guys will help you with setting up and what pay categories it goes to and everything like that. But that creates a work type. And then from ShiftCare, when we're doing the pay group setup, we're able to link a pay group. So we would have another pay group called leadership. And then when we do the link, we would be able to actually link it to leadership rate, which is the work type that I just created. But like I said, for your normal employees pay category, which means they're just working what they normally work. They're set to work a certain rate. That's what they get. They're level 2.3, and you've got that set in their profile. So if we go to Employment Hero, every employee has a set pay run default. So this staff member is a level 1 pay point 3 worker, right? So we don't have to do anything special to tell Employment Hero to pay them on the level 1 pay point 3, because that's what they're set to. So in that, what we would actually do is tell it to just not even export the work type. We just don't need to tell Employment Hero that. And so it makes it really simple. We just say if they're working just a regular shift, just send it as a shift. It's good to go. So that's how you sync that. And then with the allowances, there's a little bit more to the allowances. So with a sleepover, we just need to map it to the work type of sleepover. And with mileage, I think it's kilometer allowance. And then we've got these awake during a sleepover. So there's a work during a sleepover option. And so that
Well, why are you doing that? There was a couple of questions just around travel time and travel kilometers. So they are crosses, assuming that you've mapped those fields correctly, right?
Yeah, that's more so let me just read that question. Yeah, so will travel time and travel kilometers be brought across? Yes, so we're mapping the kilometers here. In terms of travel time, we would normally, and we do this with the 0-1 anyway, you would create an allowance for the provider travel time, and that would send over with the thing. So it works very similar to 0 in that regard. Cool. So I've mapped all that stuff up. So what that allows me to do now is to sync over timesheets. So if I go into the pay run, I might just add these shifts over to a staff member that's working. And I go back into the integration. I can sync when I have an approved timesheets. Normally, obviously, my recommendation would be that you approve your timesheets before you send them over. But yeah, we can come in here and we can say, all right, I've got a couple of shifts today. I don't need it to be only approved timesheets. So I'll just do that, and I might just do today and tomorrow so that there's 2 shifts. So we've got 2 8-hour shifts here. I can hit export timesheets. And that should create 2 timesheets. So if I go over to ShiftCare now, I'll be able to have a look at the timesheets, and it should show me 2 timesheets for Todd Avery for the 2 shifts that they worked. It all worked. How good? Of course it did. It's perfect.
Looks like magic.
It's amazing. I should probably add the way it's going to work with leave is that there is going to be a button here in the export. So there's going to be an import leave option. We're just ironing out a couple of issues with that. That's going to be done in the next couple of days, but essentially it's really fantastic. So if they have approved leave in Employment Hero HR, you can then run that sync, and it will then create it as unavailability in ShiftCare. Now, another cool thing too, if you did that and then you decided that you accidentally gave too many people leave and you change it and say, no, you can't have leave, the next time you run that sync, it'll remove the unavailability from ShiftCare as well, which is really awesome. So yeah, it'll keep it all sort of synced together so that you know who's available and who's not. And at the moment, it's kind of a 2-step process. I tell people, yeah, tell them to add it to the Swag app and then tell them to go into ShiftCare and add the leave. Well, they won't have to do that anymore. They can just add it into the Swag app. You guys approve it and then bring it down. Yeah, cool.
One quick question I think is quite interesting is, can you sync multiple shift counts to one Employment Hero business?
Yeah, there should be no dramas with that. Yeah, the short answer is yes, because Employment Hero doesn't really know who it's sending it to. It just knows it's sending data. So yeah, it's no problem. And
cool.
With timesheets, you can send multiple timesheets in from different places. I've tested that before. So yeah, there should be no dramas. I think someone's asked a question, Courtney, and maybe I might ask you if you know. I don't know. I currently use Xero to manage our payments for pay, super, and tax. Will we still use Xero as well for reconciling and arranging for super payments?
Great question. In short, we have Beam as our inbuilt super clearinghouse within the payroll system itself, although businesses can nominate their own. So you can utilize the one that is available in platform, or you can self-select. What we would see is most businesses would scale down or remove completely their Xero payroll subscription. Some may keep Xero accounting as well, and we can look to push journal entries out into Xero if required.
So there's a question here from an anonymous, says, just had a quick question regarding the webinar. I wanted to check if the session would be relevant for employees who work at OSHC and have broken shifts. Now, I love a good acronym, but I have no idea what
Overseas
OSH.
students. Overseas students.
Yeah, I thought it stood for overseas healthcare, but yeah. So maybe it is an overseas student. So yes, you can still, like, in ShiftCare, you can set. I guess it's down to, are they on the SHADS award or are they not on the SHADS award? And if they're on the SHADS award, then yes, our system will warn you with our new alerts to tell you that you need a broken shift, and then Employment Hero's payroll system would pick up that they need to be paid a broken shift when you send the timesheets over. So yeah, it should work. But I'm not, if they're under a different award, then it kind of depends on the award that they're on and whether that award has broken shifts, which I think the SHADS award is one of the special awards that has broken shifts. I don't think there's many other awards that use a broken shift allowance, but yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty rare across some of the awards. I know with our payroll platform itself, we've got over 50 pre-built awards in there ready to go completely free of charge. However, we can also cater towards any special rules. So if you were paying by a contracted rate and you did need to incorporate that in, we can definitely get that built on our end as well. If there's any EBAs in place, if there's anything curly, we can normally modify it.
Yeah, they're referring to, it's actually out of school hours care. Sorry, I'm sorry, guys, I got it completely out of the wrong hole. I went down a complete another rabbit hole, but Julie and Ashley have set us straight. So out of school hours care. Well done.
There you go. I figured it might mean something else. Yeah, same answer though. It all depends on whether they're under the SHADS award, what award they're on. So really. Cool. What else have we got? We got some more questions coming through. Can you import from EH recruitment? That's the HR side of it, yeah?
Correct. So the EH recruitment aspect forms part of the Employment Hero HR platform. There is a onboard button built in within that. So once that employee has put in some of their details, contact, first name, last name, that sort of thing, you can click onboard. That'll pull all their details into the rest of the HR platform. And the HR platform is naturally integrated with ShiftCare as well. You can't access the EH recruitment module without HR. It is just part of it as well.
Lucy's asking, when timesheets are exported, does their status change in ShiftCare so that we can see they've already been exported? That's actually a great question. No is the answer, but I actually really like that because I do know that Employment Hero, well, look, I think if you're trying to send a timesheet over for the same employee for a shift that you've already sent over, Employment Hero will return an error and say you can't create that shift again because it already exists against that staff member. So maybe not needed, but it's still good feedback. I'll pass that through to the team. Cool, like that. What else have we got? So I'm currently on Employment Hero payroll and download and upload timesheets. So now I can integrate timesheets directly like you could. That's exactly right, Claire. Yes. So you'll be able to turn on this new integration and you'll be able to, set it up. And we've got a doc on how to set it up as well. And yeah, you'll be able to just sync it like I did there. You saw how quickly I was able to sync those two timesheets over. That's how quickly you'll be able to do it without having to download a file and upload it and all that kind of stuff, which is really awesome. Is there a built-in reference check system for HREH?
That one's me. There certainly is. So those reference checks as well can be automated. We've also got a really cool AI-powered prompting tool in there. So you can have a few questions prompted, or you can create your own, or you can get them to improve what you've input in there as well. We do phone and email reference checks as part of that recruitment module. So you can choose what you prefer, and that can be different for each different role. So you can create specific onboarding journeys, hiring journeys for divisions, roles, tiers, that sort of thing.
Nice. I've got more questions for you. Is there an online induction module in the HR?
Yeah, so you can import and build your own induction modules in there. There's a few that automatically get assigned out as well, mainly pertaining to fair work, not policies, information statements and that sort of thing. Those induction modules, the induction content as well, can be auto-assigned to particular roles, divisions, groups, employees within the business as well as part of their onboarding. So gone are the days where you have to manually assign policy A out, video B out, ways of working C out. that can all be streamlined and automated. Really great as well if you've got high turnover or high growth plans. Everyone's going to get a really consistent onboarding experience, which then flows through to your care delivery.
Awesome. I'm going to read out what Jenny just wrote because that's really cool. So Jenny said that they did their first their pay run with a new integration, and my goodness, so many things were easier, faster, and better. So really pleased with the integration benefits. Cut down on my time on the pay run for sure. So that's awesome. Love to hear that. So yeah, we've had a few people on our beta testing. So we've had some people that have had access to the integration already. So yeah, it's awesome that we're getting good feedback. All right, someone else is asking, so I think they're following up on that question. They want to know if they can import directly from EH recruitment without onboarding to HR because they don't want to pay for 3 platforms for 1 staff member. I'm guessing no.
Yeah, so Employment Hero Recruitment forms part of the HR platform. It isn't available as a standalone, which means without HR, there is no recruitment, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, cool. Can you please clarify, our business has outgrown Xero, and I'm wondering if EH Payroll and ShiftCare will need to engage another service to replace Xero. I mean, yes, you'll need a system. Well, I mean, so one of the challenges with Xero is they have a limit of like 100 staff, I think, or something like that, or maybe it's 200. And so when you reach that limit, you're done. Like that's it. Xero's no longer an option. So yes, you would need to move your payroll systems over at least to Employment Hero Payroll. Now, in terms of like the other aspects of Xero, which is like invoicing, data management, creditors, all that kind of stuff. You would still need an accounting platform for that, but I guess you could still use Xero. I don't know. You probably need to chat to your accountant on which exactly would be the best service for that. But yeah, you would need something to still be your accounting platform because EH Payroll really just takes care of that payroll side of things, not so much the invoicing and that kind of stuff. Approving timesheets in ShiftCare, and when it in EH, it needs to approve again. Yeah. I'm looking at that, Jenny. Definitely hoping we can do something with that. It's still, I think you can approve them all in one click anyway, so it's not too bad. But yeah, I will. I think it'd be nice to have an option to just auto approve the timesheets when you import them over to Employment Hero. Definitely a good idea. How would the payroll interpret breaks between shifts at different locations? This is a big issue at the moment for me, as even my HR lawyer cannot give me a definitive assessment of when my staff should be paid for traveling between participants. Yeah, I think so. I guess like being paid between participants is like, okay, that's provider travel, and generally if they're traveling from one shift to another, you've got to pay them the kilometers and the time that it takes for them to travel between. But then I think the question then becomes, is there a broken shift allowance, or is it a unpaid meal break and all that kind of stuff? I think the general rule that most providers are using is that if it's more than an hour between a shift, they're paying a broken shift allowance, and if it's less than an hour, they're saying it's an unpaid meal break. But I think there's some, in sort of interpretation of the award, because everyone's got a different opinion on that. So I'm not sure exactly how the rule in Employment Hero determines whether it's a broken shift allowance or not, but I would imagine it's probably that kind of rule where it's like an hour or more than an hour, it's a broken shift allowance. But definitely something you can ask when you talk to the team and you're looking at ShiftCare, because they'll make sure the rules are the way you want them to be. So they'll look at that and go, okay, what do we need to make sure the rules are doing so that it works for you guys? Can we keep our shift types in ShiftCare, or does this create an error in EH Payroll? So yeah, one of the things I love about the new integrations that we've built out with Employment Hero is that it doesn't use the shift types. It only uses the pay groups. So you can have the shift types being whatever you want. Our old integration required the shift types to be named and specified about how you wanted to pay your staff. That's no longer the case. So yeah, that's one of the great things, is you can do essentially what you want with the shift types now. Yep, definitely you'll be able to follow up and chat with the EH team. Cool. Any other questions?
I think Leonie had one that probably wasn't answered as she thought. Do you want to resubmit your question and then we can just have another crack at it? Otherwise, what's the best email to send questions through to, Paul?
I think that's more of a employment hero question. So Courtney, what's the best email for them?
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be my email. So we can happy for you guys to send that out after. If not,
Yeah,
it
sweet.
is. Yeah, might
Or
be
you
easier
can
than
chat
another
it. You can
document.
chuck it in the chat as well if you want.
I'll
But
do it
yeah,
now.
cool. Yeah, reach straight out to them. I think it was in relation to that recruitment and
It
section.
was.
Yeah. How does this work with sleepover shifts and with working during a sleepover? Yeah, so great question. So you would have noticed when I was doing the syncing that I had some allowances called awake 1.5, awake 2. So essentially sleepover shift, you still need to do the shift as 3 separate shifts, sleepover allowance on the middle shift, or 2 shifts if you're not doing 3. And then during the sleepover, if a staff member reports that they got woken up, you add like how long they were awake for as an allowance. And this is just an example. I usually make more than that, but I just didn't. It's a demo account. I didn't want to spend 5 hours setting it up. But essentially, you add the awake allowance to the shift. It then sends it over to Employment Hero with a awake period in the middle of the shift. It's actually really cool how they've designed it. So yeah, it will. And then Employment Hero will analyze that and know that they have to pay overtime for the time that they got woken up during the sleepover. So it all works. It's really fantastic. Cool. Any other questions?
Melissa James had one that she posed in the chat. If we have support workers working in various business areas, will the information go across Employment Hero Payroll also? So if they work in SIL, it's identified as a SIL shift. Community engagement is identified as a community engagement shift. So they can be costed.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I kind of skipped over it because I said I didn't want to get into the weeds too much during the demo, but there is a tick box before you export the timesheets that says to enable client location tracking. So essentially, Employment Hero does have a function called locations. So you can go into Employment Hero and you can go to payroll settings and there's a locations area. And so what that enables you to do is when they're working a shift, you can say on that shift who they were with, and generally the way that we do it is that the client that's on the shift is the location. And so the client you will then create locations for all your clients and it'll say what state it's in. And you can also on those locations have default shift conditions. So that can be conditions like you're talking about where maybe they have to be paid a meal allowance when they do. I don't know. There's all sorts of shift conditions and stuff that you might do. But yeah, you can get really granular and it can be used for costing as well. So it can be used for 2 reasons. It can be used for costing and also for applying shift conditions and also making sure that if they're working, like if you were a cross-border country, cross-border city and you had some working in the New South Wales or some working in Queensland or something like that, that can do that as well with locations. So yeah, that's all part. We can help you with that. How do the sleepover interactions link with via ShiftCare? Do they go over to invoice? So the invoicing side is sort of a separate part of it. You essentially would need to, so obviously the sleepover, the rate that you charge through the NDIS includes 2 hours of awake time. So if your staff member's not woken up for more than 2 hours and you can't change claiming, you've got to just still claim the same amount. But if they do get woken up for more than 2 hours, then what you would do is you would edit the shift and an advance edit and you would split it and you would have the 8-hour sleepover price book and then you would have like a 1 hour price book of the awake time and it would charge the hour or 2 hours or however long it was. And then when you do the invoicing, that'll be on the invoice. Cool.
There's a few questions about does this work with PayCat? Paul, do you just want to Paul and Courtney, you just want to respond to that if that's all right?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got an integration with PayCat that's completely separate. I mean, I know the question there is because you all know that it uses the same sort of back end, which is like what we call KeyPay, which is the old system. So yes, we have an integration for PayCat, but yeah, probably not relevant to this webinar. We're all about Employment Hero today. Can you please tell us the subscription and setting up costs for Employment Hero? That's definitely not my question.
Yeah, absolutely. We would really need to scope your requirements. It can be a little bit of how long's a piece of string situation, depending on which platform you're after, number of employees and that sort of thing. I will send you my details after we jump off the call as well. We can give you an accurate quote, depending on what you're after.
Cool. Yeah, I think the questions are sort of slowing down a bit. So last call for questions, and then I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Courtney. Yeah, that was really good. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty happy with it. I think just in summary, the cool thing about the integration is the direct ability to import staff. The second key attribute is to import their current documents and certifications, a copy of those documents if it's from the Employment Hero payroll platform, and the associated expiry date, which is really important, as we know, for compliance, especially working with children checks, first aid, et cetera, et cetera. So we feel that's really, really critical. The other aspect that I think is really cool is just the ability to sort of be able to map the appropriate costing fields between ShiftCare and Employment Hero, which allows you to create a much more seamless payroll experience. We know that payroll can take a long time. We know some of you on this call are doing it really, really well. Unfortunately, the majority of the industry just takes far too long, and they're using Excel spreadsheets to double check things, and they're eyeballing things, and it's not the right way to work. And so I love the fact that we've brought in the ability to be able to map those appropriate codes between ShiftCare and Employment Hero. And the last one that I also feel like is a real game changer is the ability to import leave directly from the Employment Hero HR platform. We know that we're coming up to Christmas. I'm talking to providers, Courtney's talking to providers, Paul's talking to providers. And one of the things is, how do I ensure the standard of care over the Christmas break when everybody wants to take time off? We know it's hard. So if there was one thing that we could do was to create a more seamless integration between those two platforms. So as Paul mentioned, the aim is to release that little piece of functionality by the end of the week. So I'm really pumped about that. And also love the fact that we managed to sneak the little Employment Hero icons onto the staff sync, so you can see which staff have been synced to Employment Hero and not. We know that's feedback from some of our previous integrations, that people wanted that kind of visibility in the visual cues to see who was synced and who wasn't.
Yeah, and I think to me, one of the greatest things is now that we've got this SHADS alert on rostering, and we've got Employment Hero with SHADS interpretation on payroll, we're living the dream. Like, you think a year ago, it was a nightmare trying to work out. You had to I was training people, and you had to train rostering staff to be a SHADS expert to know what, who's going to get paid what, overtimes here and there, and also there was a real risk to the business. So we're in such a good space now to really ensure that you're compliant, that you're able to try and cut expenses on overtimes and stuff like that. So yeah, it's fantastic. Jenny's asked a question, is approved leave coming over from the PayCat integration as well? So no is my understanding of that. The leave is only working on the Employment Hero integration, because it's coming from the Employment Hero HR integration at this stage. But I think more news on that may be in the future, but for now it's an Employment Hero HR feature. Awesome.
Yeah.
I might just jump in quickly, sorry, before we jump off the call, just so we've still got everyone. I appreciate today's call is at quite a high level on how the integration looks and what it might look like for a general business. We are able to do a little bit more of a tailored demonstration for what the recruitment would look like, what the onboarding journey looks like, data flow or data workflow for you guys as well. So if you are wanting a tailored demonstration or a tailored quote for both our services as well as ShiftCare's, or one or the other, feel free to reach out to me directly as well. You'll get a copy of my contact details after the call too. And we are offering some really nice little Christmas offers as well for anyone who reaches out before then.
Cool. Santa's out. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks very much, guys. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Thank you, Courtney.
Thanks for your time today, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.